So it's safe to say this year has not been the best year for Alton Towers. We've had many issues ranging from operations to the overall aesthetic of the park and even some complaints with Scarefest. Now it's not been total gloom. We've had the Curse of Alton Manor, which has been a really big success, and even a new scare zone at Scarefest and many more positives. However, overall in terms of on the world stage, Alton Towers is falling behind. Today, I'm going to go through a couple of points on what I feel Alton Towers need to do this year to improve their park. So we're going to be starting off with the two main things in my opinion, and that is operations and something that's closely linked with a major cleanup. Now, some of this cleanup's already started with Rita being jet washed a couple of weeks ago. And as usual, I'm sure there'll be the usual winter maintenance on these rides, hopefully, especially on rides like Hex. However, something needs to be done throughout the entire season to make sure these rides are operating to their top standard on a consistent basis. For example, last year I was fortunate to go at the start of the year, the middle of the year, and also the end of the theme park season. At the start of the year, the operations were very good. Even Hex was open and I managed to get on there more than once. This is also especially good considering on the second day it did rain in the park quite heavily, and obviously that wouldn't affect rides like Hex, but the overall operations of the roller coasters was very good, apart from 13 of course. However, later in the year and even as early as July when we went in the centre of the year, operations and rides were not consistently open. In fact, this is something I do mention during our July vlog, which you can probably see in the top right. Beyond about rides such as Subterra, Galactica being closed throughout most of the day, and also Rita closing down, and even the Smiler broke down temporarily as well. Now, of course, not everything is planned. However, this was even especially noticeable during Scarefest at the end of the year, and also during Oktoberfest in September. Obviously, while some rides go down unexpectedly and also weather plays a factor, it's pretty obvious as a bigger problem when it's happening so frequently throughout the year. Obviously, some days, especially some people watching, it might be perfect, and other days it might not be. And when I went, especially throughout the year, it wasn't consistently operating to its full standards. I'm not sure whether there just needs to be some more regular maintenance or riders looked after better, which obviously, based on the state of the coasters, they aren't being looked after the best. In addition to all this, getting trains out faster would also be a big thing. I remember waiting ages on 13 for getting rides out swiftly, and this would also help with the queues of the park if they could just get trains out quicker. Now, the second part of this is a major cleanup. Now, this goes from painting coasters, jet washing them, and also just clean the park in general. Now, when mentioning all of this, the first thing that comes to my mind is the Smiler, especially. I mean, that's meant to be a black painted coaster, and it looked more dark grey to grey. Also, in addition, all the moss and all the plants that are growing throughout the queue line, it's not aesthetically pleasing, especially for a world-class coaster at 14 inversions. Another ride this cleanup could happen on is the Wicker Man queue line. I mean, the foliage and the plants are just overgrowing the little bits of theming that are actually in the queue line, and it just doesn't look as good, and, you know, it would just look nicer if it was cleaned up a little bit. Now, the next thing I'd go to is opening times. Now, Alton Towers opening times have already been announced, so making this video doesn't really do anything about it. However, I still want to go and talk about it. I'm not the only one with this opinion. However, the opening time should be longer, especially on the weekend and especially on Saturday, which is always busy. I'm obviously not the first person to bring this up, and it's not just my opinion, it's a wide opinion throughout the theme park industry that the UK theme parks need to extend their hours, generally speaking. However, obviously Alton Towers this video is made on should definitely. I'm not going to spend too much time talking about that, so we're going to jump into events. Now, this is roaming from Scarefest all the way to Oktoberfest and Mardi Gras, for example. I'm going to start with Scarefest because that's actually an event I went to last year, as well as Oktoberfest. Now, for Scarefest, I would just have more roaming actors. It's something I think should be standard, especially for a Halloween event at the park. You should have these roaming actors that are trying to scare you. And some people could argue, well, what if people don't like that? And something they could implement is just a wristband system that if you don't want to be scared or be involved with the roaming actors, you just wear this wristband and it just says that you don't want to be involved with them. However, 90% of the people there who are going to Scarefest probably will, so it would be worth it. And you can't tell me it can't be done because Curse of Alton Manor has had roaming actors out and it's been hugely successful. So if you're telling me you can't just throw roaming actors into different areas of the park, I just don't believe it for 2 seconds. Another thing for Scarefest which links to the roaming actors is the scare zones. I was raving about the scare zone that they added this year, or last year I suppose it is now. If you go and watch the video again, it'll be in the top corner. I was going mental about it. I mean, I even made 2 parts in the video just talking about it. And if I'm honest, I didn't really hear anything bad about it overall throughout social media or YouTube, so it was clearly very popular with the general public as well. You don't have to have loads of these. I'd say maybe 3, so you have that one near the Wicker Man, and then maybe somewhere else. A Dark Forest themed around 13 would be my personal choice, and then maybe one in X Sector around the Smiler and Oblivion or something like that. Now, this is going to be very popular, but different scare mazes. I mean, it was hugely requested when the scare mazes were announced last year that this year for 2024, there needs to be some different scare mazes. I don't really think I need to go into that. I just think that's pretty self-explanatory. There needs to be a different selection. I mean, I'm not sure if I'm the only one, but if there was four scare mazes or 3, and then the sound experience, that needs to go for a start. Even if maybe they put down the offering and then added 1 or 2 more scare zones and then made completely brand new scare mazes, I think most people would be happy about that. Especially if you factor in Roman actors and then maybe more like Halloween decorations around the park. Now, I've talked a lot about Scarefest because I feel like that's the creme de la creme. Everyone loves Scarefest. However, there's also the Christmas event, which I didn't go to because it just did not look worth it. Alton Towers is close, but it's not close enough for me to warrant going there for a couple of rides being open, and that's really about it. And staying overnight didn't seem like too much of an attractive proposition for me personally to even worth going to make a video on it. Which is disappointing because having saw what it was the year before, I was looking forward to doing it last year. However, then I saw the videos that I'd already seen and it just didn't seem worth it to me. So again, I'm not going to go too far into that, but that Christmas event, if you're going to do it, it needs to be done properly in my opinion and not half-hearted. That doesn't necessarily mean you need to have loads of rides open. It just means little things like decorations throughout the park from day one needs to be the bare minimum, and also offering more than just rides to the average consumer who's going to the park. Now, the last thing I'm going to go on is theming. Now, I'm not sure if this has been encouraged by the fact I went to Europa Park during November. However, I mean, I already mentioned it in some of my earlier vlogs, like Oktoberfest. Just the theming around certain queue lines isn't good enough, in my opinion. It's something I don't feel is talked about enough, and the fact that people are raving about Nemesis possibly having a crate that you're going to be able to walk through proves it would be successful if they themed their queue lines properly. Again, you can't argue against this either because of what they're doing with the Nemesis queue line and also how well they've done the Curse of Alton Manor queue line. Remember, this video is trying to say things that Alton Towers need to do to become better on the world stage, even in the UK as well, especially with Universal possibly opening the park by the end of the decade. And yes, I know things don't happen overnight and things will not just happen this winter. However, this winter and future winters need to be the start and the continuation of constant maintenance, improving queue lines, improving rides, and improving the overall experience of the park. Because if these things aren't done, not just Alton Towers, but across most of the Merlin parks in the UK, then Universal will just arrive and just be something like out of this world in comparison, and Merlin will lose revenue share. The last couple of bits about theming that I would go and talk about is lighting. Now again, during the Alton Manor vlog I also mentioned this, and earlier run about having later opening times. This would also help. Having permanent lighting around the park. This should be standard now in my opinion, especially with such a big park, and also how good it could look if you had proper natural lighting. Sorry, not natural, but you know what I mean. Permanent lighting is what I was going for. We don't need to make the park look like Blackpool illuminations, of course. However, just some odd bits of lighting and not using generators every Scarefest to light up the park would just be a huge improvement and maybe encourage late opening times because the park isn't just full of dark paths. So those are just some of the things that I think Alton Towers need to do this year to improve and to also look better on the world stage. A lot of this in simplified form just means they need to improve the overall experience for everybody going to the park. Let me know your thoughts, however. Obviously, this is hugely talked about at the moment throughout all the Merlin parks. Leave a comment on what you think they need to do, and if you disagree with me, that's all right. Let me know your thoughts about why you disagree with me, and if I got anything factually wrong, please also let me know. Make sure you drop a like, subscribe, and turn that noty bell. Any videos I have mentioned are going to be in the top corner. However, the video here is from the Europa Park trip, which you are more than welcome to go and check out. Thank you for watching. Have a good day, and I'll see you later. Goodbye.